In conversation, she mentioned seeing Imran and Aisha at a community dinner. "Oh, and Aisha told everyone that your mother moved permanently to Lahore," she said casually. "She said you wanted to be closer to your relatives." I sat still, the teacup trembling slightly in my hands. Moved permanently. Those words hit harder than I expected. I smiled faintly and said, "Ah yes, that's true." But inside, something shattered quietly. That night, I cried for the first time since leaving. Not loudly, not angrily, just silent tears that fell onto the pillow. I wasn't angry at Aisha. Maybe she believed she was doing what was right for her home. And I wasn't angry at Imran either. He was still my son. My love for him hadn't changed. It never could. But I grieved the bond we once had. The one that had been built through years of shared struggle and laughter. Now it was replaced with distance dressed as politeness. It hurt, but it also taught me something important. Sometimes love must step back so that peace can exist, even if that peace doesn't include you. Months later, I decided to stop waiting by the phone. I started spending my mornings helping my sister in her small garden. I sewed clothes for her neighbors again, the way I used to years ago. Every stitch felt like a thread pulling me slowly back to life. There were still moments when memories caught me off guard. Like when I smelled biryani, or heard a young man call his mother on the street. But those moments became softer with time. One afternoon, while watering the plants, my sister came out holding her phone. "Salma, someone wants to talk to you." It was Imran. His voice was quiet, hesitant. "Ami." "Yes, Beta," I said, trying to keep my tone steady. I wanted to tell you that Aisha's expecting. You're going to be a grandmother." For a moment, my heart stopped. Then it filled with warmth I hadn't felt in so long. "Really?" I whispered. "Mashallah, that's wonderful news." He hesitated. "Aisha wanted to tell you herself, but she thought you might be upset." "Upset?" I said softly. "Why would I be upset? A new life is a blessing." He exhaled, relieved. "Thank you, Ami." I smiled through tears. "Just promise me one thing. Raise that child with love, and never let them feel alone." He was quiet for a long moment before saying, "I will, Ami." When the call ended, I sat under the sunlight, eyes closed. Somewhere deep inside, forgiveness began to grow, small, fragile, but real. That was the day I realized that letting go doesn't mean you stop loving. It means you choose to love from a distance, quietly, without expectation. And sometimes, that's the purest form of love a mother can give. After that phone call, something inside me softened. For months I had carried a quiet heaviness, the kind that sits in your chest and refuses to leave. But hearing that a new life was coming, it reminded me that even after loss, the world keeps creating reasons to hope. Every morning after Far, I began to pray not only for my son, but for the child who would soon arrive. I prayed that the baby would know gentleness, that laughter would fill their home, that love would circle them like light. Sometimes I wondered if Aisha would let me be part of that circle. Other times, I told myself it was enough just to know they were happy. Life with my sister settled into a rhythm. We shared small joys. Morning tea on the balcony, evening walks to the corner shop. She would tease me gently, "Salma, you look younger now. Maybe leaving that big house was good for you." I'd smile and say, "Maybe peace makes us all look younger." But deep down, I missed my son's voice in the evenings, his careless laughter, his questions about my day. Missing someone doesn't always fade. It just learns to sit quietly beside you. When the baby was born, Imran called again. "It's a boy, Ami," he said, his voice trembling with happiness. For a moment I couldn't speak. Tears blurred everything. "May Allah bless him," I whispered. "Have you chosen a name?" "Not yet. Aisha wants to name him after her father. But I was thinking, maybe after Abu." That single word, Abu, filled my chest with warmth. "Your father would be proud," I said softly. He promised to send photos soon. When they arrived, I held the small prince in my hands for a long time. The baby had Imran's eyes. And in that moment, all the distance between us felt smaller. A few months later, Aisha called. Her tone was polite, cautious. "Ami, how are you?" "I'm well, Beta," I said, surprised but genuinely happy to hear her voice. "We were thinking, If you're free, maybe you could come for a few weeks. The baby keeps us busy, and Imran thought you'd like to meet him. My throat tightened. Of course, Beta. I'd love to. She hesitated. It's just things are a bit messy here. I don't want you to be uncomfortable. I smiled even though she couldn't see it. I've seen all kinds of mess, Aisha. Don't worry. When I hung up, my sister hugged me. See, time heals in its own way. The train ride back to the city felt different this time. I still watched the same trees and the same markets pass by, but the weight in my heart was lighter. Forgiveness has a quiet strength. It doesn't erase pain, but it makes space for peace to enter. When I reached the house, Imran was waiting at the gate, holding his baby in his arms. Ammi, he called softly. The word, after so long, sounded like music. I walked up to him, and before I could say anything, he hugged me. For a moment I felt his heartbeat against mine. The way I used to when he was small. All the words I had saved, the hurt, the longing, the questions, they all melted away in that embrace. Aisha stood behind him, smiling shyly. Come in, Ammi, she said. The house missed you. I stepped inside. The walls looked the same, but the air felt different, warmer, kinder. Over the next few days, I spent most of my time with my grandson. I held him, sang to him softly, told him stories even though he was too small to understand. Sometimes when he slept in my arms, I would look at Aisha and say, he smiles just like Imran did when he was a baby. She'd nod, a little laugh escaping her lips. He does, doesn't he? We began to talk more, not about the past but about small, ordinary things. She asked about recipes, I complimented her cooking. One evening, while I folded tiny baby clothes, she said quietly, Ammi, I know I hurt you. I didn't mean to. I just wanted my own space, and I didn't know how to balance everything. I looked at her, seeing not the woman who once shut me out, but a young wife and mother trying to find her place in the world. It's all right, Beta, I said softly. We all make mistakes when we're learning to live together. Tears filled her eyes. I was afraid you'd never forgive me. I shook my head. A mother's heart doesn't close, Aisha. It just waits quietly until the door opens again. She wiped her eyes, smiled, and whispered, Thank you. That night, Imran came to sit beside me. Ammi, he said. I know things weren't easy. I should have listened more. I placed my hand on his. You were building your own life, Beta. I understand. Sometimes love means stepping back so others can grow. He looked down ashamed. I feel like I failed you. I shook my head gently. No, Imran. You gave me the chance to see that love can survive even when we stop living under the same roof. That's not failure. That's growth. He smiled faintly. I missed you, Ammi. I know, I said. And I missed you too. As days passed, the house began to feel like home again. Not in the same way, but in a gentler, shared way. Aisha and I cooked together sometimes. She'd laugh when I scolded her for adding too much chili. Imran would come home early just to sit with the baby in my lap. There was still space between us, some memories that stayed quiet, but the silence wasn't heavy anymore. It was peaceful. One evening as the baby slept, Aisha brought me a cup of tea. She hesitated before speaking. Ammi, would you like to stay with us for a while? Not just visit. I looked around the room. The family photos, the soft light, the sound of my grandson breathing. For the first time, I didn't feel like a guest. I smiled. I'll stay for a bit. But only if you promise not to send me away when you need space. She laughed softly. I promise. That night, I sat near the window, watching the moonlight spill over the garden. The jasmine plants I had once cared for were still there, blooming quietly. I closed my eyes and whispered, Thank you. Not to anyone in particular, just to life itself, for giving me another chance to love without bitterness. Time moved gently after that. The baby began to crawl, then walk, his laughter filling every corner of the house. Sometimes, when he'd run into my arms, Imran would watch us with a smile that said everything words couldn't. One afternoon he said, Ammi, I think he loves you more than he loves me. I laughed. Impossible. You're his father. But deep down, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. The simple joy of being needed again. A few months later, I returned to visit my sister. Before I left, Aisha hugged me tightly. "Come back soon," she said. On the train, I watched the city fade behind me once more, but this time I didn't feel pain. Leaving no longer meant losing. It simply meant carrying love wherever I went. I realized then that forgiveness is not a single moment. It's a journey, one that begins the day you decide to stop counting what was taken from you and start cherishing what still remains.